They had no idea who was coming. Then humanity's Deathworlders arrived. In the quiet of deep space, most ships moved with a careful silence, following old trade routes or patrolling systems that were long mapped and catalogued. The Coalition, a group of advanced alien civilizations, had spent centuries exploring and claiming regions of the galaxy. Yet there were still pockets of space they ignored, believing them too empty or too dangerous to bother with. One of these pockets was a small star system on the edge of known space, far from Coalition hubs and far from political interest. It had a single blue planet that seemed unremarkable from orbit, but to some, it was worth watching. Ethan Brooks, a human-like species officer assigned to the Coalition's outer exploration fleet, stared at the sensor screens in front of him. He was young, barely 25 standard years, but already careful and thoughtful. He could see small blips flicker at the edge of the system, ones the automatic scanners ignored. "Something's out there," he said quietly to Claire Moore, his second in command. Claire was older, more experienced, and had a calm voice that made others listen. She glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. "Ethan, it's probably nothing. Sensors pick up random debris, micrometeorites, or even old satellites," she said. Her voice carried confidence, but a faint shadow of doubt crossed her face as she looked at the readings again. "I've been checking for weeks," Ethan replied. "These readings don't match any debris or natural activity. It's moving and it's intelligent. At least I think it is." Claire frowned and leaned closer to the screen. "Intelligent, huh? You're saying we might have company in this system that no one even visits?" "Exactly," Ethan said. He tapped the screen, highlighting the flickers. "I've run the scans through our patterns. Nothing matches. It's too coordinated to be random. Whoever or whatever it is, it's careful. It's hiding." Claire nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll report it, but don't expect anyone to take it seriously. The Council doesn't care about systems without resources or population." "They'll say it's probably nothing," Ethan sighed. "Maybe, but what if it's not? What if it's something dangerous?" The quiet of the observation deck filled the room as both of them stared at the endless black outside. The stars seemed distant, uncaring, yet the sense of something lurking made the air feel heavy. For the first time, Ethan felt the kind of fear that was more than just professional caution. It was the kind that settled in your chest and refused to leave. The system itself had been quiet for centuries. Coalition charts showed no alien settlements, no space stations, and no colonies. Merchants occasionally passed through on rare trade runs, but most avoided it. Even space pirates had no reason to linger there. It was a dead zone by every standard metric, and that was why it was so interesting to Ethan. Hours passed, and the flickering blips remained. Ethan and Claire alternated shifts, trying to catch a clearer signal. Each time they thought they had lost it, the blips returned. Eventually, they saw a faint shadow on their long-range imaging, something too large to be a ship or asteroid, yet oddly shaped. "I don't like it," Claire admitted. "Whatever it is, it's too big to hide for long." Ethan's fingers hovered over the controls. "Should we approach?" "Maybe make contact," Claire shook her head. "Not yet. We don't even know if it's friendly. One wrong move, and we could start a war we don't understand." Ethan leaned back, feeling a knot in his stomach. It had been years since anyone had seen humans enter this part of space. The legends told stories of them, whispered in council meetings, always described as brutal and unpredictable. Most aliens considered them a myth, too violent, too harsh to survive in space without killing everything around them. Yet here in the silent frontier, Ethan wondered if those legends were true. And if they were, what would happen when the humans arrived? Meanwhile, on the planet below, life went on as usual. The blue world looked calm from orbit, with oceans glinting under the distant sun. But beneath the surface, the planet was harsh. Storms ripped through continents with unforgiving power, earthquakes shook the land without warning, and predators roamed with deadly efficiency. Yet life thrived. Forests and plains survived despite the constant struggle. Rivers carved valleys that seemed ancient and wise, and creatures adapted or died in ways that seemed cruel but effective. Ethan didn't know it yet, but this planet was home to the humans that the Coalition had only whispered about. They were the Deathworlders, the humans who had survived conditions that would have killed almost any other species. They were strong, clever, and terrifying in ways the galaxy could not imagine. Back in the observation deck, Ethan reviewed more scans. "Claire, the Council may ignore this system, but I don't think we should. Something is moving in patterns that are clearly intelligent, and it's fast. faster than anything we have cataloged. Claire rubbed her temples. You've got imagination, Ethan. But we need proof before anyone will act. We can't go sounding alarms over what might just be local phenomena. Hours turned into days. The flickers on the screen became more frequent, moving closer to the planet's orbit. Ethan's curiosity grew with each passing hour. He spent time studying the patterns, tracing their paths, and predicting their movements. Slowly, an unnerving picture began to form. Whoever or whatever was out there was preparing for something. Ethan looked at Claire. They're coming. Whatever they are, they're coming to this system. Claire's calm demeanor finally cracked. You mean an invasion? She asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. I don't know, I just know they're not like us. They've avoided detection until now, and they've been watching this planet. The rest of the crew, sensing the tension, started paying more attention. Sensors were checked and rechecked, patrols were increased, and emergency protocols were quietly reviewed. No one spoke openly about the possibility of humans because most refused to believe they existed. The Council had dismissed every report for decades, labeling them myths or exaggerations. But in the heart of the Outer Fleet, some officers began to wonder if they had ignored a threat for too long. Far away, the humans on the planet were unaware of all this. They were preparing for their own survival. Farms were rebuilt after storms, communities repaired structures damaged by wind or quake, and children trained in skills that would seem extreme to outsiders. The harsh environment had shaped their bodies and minds, teaching them endurance, caution, and ingenuity. Every human on this planet knew that the galaxy outside was unpredictable, but most assumed it would not matter. The planet itself demanded attention first, and survival was never optional. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about it. He had heard stories from other sectors about the humans, tales of survivors who had adapted to any conditions, who could endure pain, hunger, and loss in ways no other species could. But he had never seen one himself. All he had were legends and sensor patterns that seemed to hint at something more. On the observation deck, he stared at the planet below. I wish we could talk to them, he muttered. Not fight, not panic, just communicate. Claire looked at him, her face thoughtful. If they are what we think, communication might not be possible. They don't come to you for permission. They survive first, they act first, and they adapt. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced dangerous species before, but humans were different. The story said they could outthink predators, survive conditions that would kill most aliens, and endure battles that others would surrender to. They were wild, untamed, and feared even by those who had never met them. The sun set over the planet's horizon, casting long shadows across the observation deck. Ethan and Claire watched silently as the last rays disappeared. The system was calm again, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Something was coming, something powerful, and the coalition was unprepared. We need to be ready, Ethan said quietly. If they come, we can't just hope they are friendly. We have to be ready for anything. Claire nodded. I'll alert the fleet quietly. No panic, just readiness. If the Council hears about this, they'll try to contain us. We can't let them get in the way. If humans are coming, we have to survive until they show their intentions. Ethan leaned back, staring at the blackness outside. He didn't know when they would arrive or how the humans would act, but he knew one thing. Nothing in this system would ever be the same again. The quiet frontier, the forgotten edges of the galaxy, had a visitor approaching, and the coalition had no idea what was coming. As night fell across the planet, the first human vessels began leaving the hidden bases on the surface. Small, fast ships that seemed fragile in the vastness of space, yet inside them were crews hardened by storms, predators, and death itself. These humans were ready even if the aliens had no clue what awaited them. Ethan watched the blips on his screen again, faster now, more coordinated. He felt a mixture of fear and awe. The legends were real, and soon the galaxy would meet them in person. He whispered to himself, whatever comes, I hope we're ready. The stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles below, while the silent frontier waited for the arrival of Deathworlders who would change everything. The quiet of the star system was broken by the faint hum of approaching engines. The alien coalition fleet had maintained its patrols, scanning for any unusual activity. Officers like Ethan Brooks and Claire Moore kept their eyes on the sensors, hoping their warnings were wrong. But the readings were clear. Something big, something fast was moving toward the system. Ethan's heart raced as he studied the data. They're coming, he said quietly. Claire stood beside him, her calm demeanor showing only the slightest hint of worry. "How many?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I can't tell yet. The signals are scrambled, but it's not one ship, it's many, and they're coordinated." The Coalition fleet had no reason to fear the humans. At least, that was what most believed. Humans were spoken of in stories, warnings passed down from older officers who had never seen them. Some called them myth, others called them dangerous, but none had ever encountered one. Ethan, however, had studied the reports. The humans were survivors of a planet so harsh that ordinary species could not live there. They were called Deathworlders because they had survived conditions that would destroy almost any other life form. Suddenly, the first human ships appeared on long-range sensors. They were small, sleek, and oddly shaped. Their designs were not like anything the Coalition had seen before. The fleet commanders were puzzled. "Report," one of the senior officers demanded. Ethan leaned forward, pointing at the screen. "Multiple vessels moving fast. Minimal signatures, not broadcasting anything. They seem cautious but ready." The alien officers exchanged confused glances. None of them had ever dealt with a species that approached like this. Normally, newcomers broadcasted their identity, or at least made themselves known. These humans were silent hunters of space. As the first human vessels entered the outer orbit, the Coalition attempted communication. Standard protocols were followed, messages sent in universal frequencies, warnings issued. "This is Commander Raynar of the Coalition Patrol. Identify yourselves and state your purpose," the message repeated over multiple channels. There was no answer. The humans moved like shadows, circling the system, scanning and observing. Ethan and Claire watched in awe as the humans demonstrated a coordination no one expected. They were fast, precise, and unafraid. "What are they doing?" one of the senior officers asked nervously. Claire shook her head. "I don't know, but they are assessing us. They're calculating, watching. They will not attack unless they need to." Hours passed and tension grew. Coalition ships tried to approach to get a better view, but the humans kept their distance, moving with careful speed. Finally, a small human vessel broke formation, heading toward one of the Coalition scouts. Alarms rang through the control rooms. "They're coming closer," an officer shouted. Ethan held his breath. The vessel slowed near the scout, hovering in the void. A beam of light scanned the alien ship, and the Coalition crew watched nervously as the humans examined them. "They're scanning," one officer whispered. Claire nodded. "Yes, they want information. They want to know who we are, what we are capable of. It's not an attack, yet." The humans' movements were fast and efficient. The scanning completed in minutes, and the small vessel retreated back to join the others. The fleet exhaled collectively, but the tension remained. The humans were not friendly, but they were not openly hostile either. They were unpredictable. Ethan studied the humans' patterns. "They're testing us. They want to see our reactions. They will strike if they see weakness." The senior officers began to argue. Some wanted to attack immediately to show power and prevent a threat. Others argued for caution, to avoid provoking these unknown humans. The debate grew heated, but Ethan and Claire remained silent, watching the humans move through the system with calm precision. Suddenly, a warning alarm rang. A pirate fleet, sensing opportunity, moved into the system. They did not know the humans were there. They expected easy prey, unguarded targets. Instead, they found themselves in the middle of something far more dangerous. The humans reacted instantly. Small vessels darted between the pirates, striking with speed and accuracy. They disabled ships without destroying them, capturing some for inspection. The Coalition fleet watched in disbelief. These humans were not only fast, but their strategy was clear and ruthless. They acted to protect themselves and others. Ethan could hardly believe what he saw. "They're saving the scouts," he whispered. "They're defending us." Claire's eyes widened. "Humans don't just fight for themselves, they fight for allies, even strangers. This is extraordinary." The pirates tried to flee, but the humans pursued. In minutes, the threat was neutralized. Coalition ships had been spared, but the lesson was clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. After the skirmish, the humans withdrew to a distant orbit, observing quietly. The Coalition fleet took a moment to regroup, sending messages of thanks and confusion. Ethan sent a personal message, though he doubted it would be received. "I don't know what they want," he said to Claire, "but they are not like anything we've faced. They survive, adapt, and protect. If the legends are true, we are witnessing them firsthand." Claire nodded, her mind racing. "We need to document everything. Every movement, every decision they make, the Council will want to know even if they refuse to believe it. The humans remained silent, watching from the shadows. Their ships were fast, small, and deceptively powerful. Coalition engineers studied their movements, trying to understand their technology. It seemed simple, yet elegant, designed for efficiency and survival rather than intimidation. Ethan thought about what he had learned in his studies of human history. Deathworlders had survived famine, storms, predators, and wars on their home planet. They had learned to endure pain, scarcity, and danger in ways no other species could. Now in space, they were showing the same principles. They adapted, they observed, and they acted only when necessary. Claire walked over to the main console. "They are not here to destroy," she said quietly. "They are here to understand and to protect when they see injustice or weakness." Ethan agreed. "And that makes them unpredictable. We have no idea how they will react if we make a mistake. One wrong move and it could be disaster." The rest of the day passed without incident, but the Coalition officers could not relax. The humans continued to circle the system, scanning, testing, and observing. Every crew member felt the tension of being watched by a species that could kill them all if provoked. Yet there was something in their actions that inspired respect. They were not reckless. They were precise, careful, and intelligent. Ethan reviewed the logs again. "They are teaching us something," he said. "Not with words, but with actions. We are learning what humans are capable of, and it's more than anyone imagined." Claire leaned against the console, her eyes on the stars. "I hope the Council sees this the same way. Humans are dangerous, yes, but not mindless. They are extraordinary." As night fell over the planet, human ships returned to hidden positions near the surface, disappearing from Coalition sensors. The fleet tried to track them, but the humans had mastered the art of hiding, using the planet's environment to their advantage. The aliens could only guess at their numbers and capabilities. Ethan sat quietly, staring at the empty sensors. He felt both fear and awe. Humans had arrived, and the galaxy had no idea what it had just witnessed. They had come not for war, not for conquest, but for observation, survival, and protection. And in doing so, they had demonstrated power and strategy that few could imagine. Claire spoke softly, almost to herself. "The quiet frontier is not so quiet anymore, and I think this is only the beginning." Ethan nodded. "We have a lot to learn, and if humans are willing to fight for others, we need to be ready. Whatever comes next, we cannot underestimate them." As the Coalition fleet returned to its patrols, they moved more cautiously than before. Every officer knew the legends of Deathworlders were real. Every sensor reading told them that humans were not ordinary. And every crew member could feel it in their bones. The galaxy was about to meet a force it had never seen before. The humans, meanwhile, prepared quietly. Their vessels were ready, their crews alert, and their minds focused. They had come to observe, but they were ready to act at a moment's notice. The Coalition had seen their first glimpse of humanity, and that glimpse was enough to change everything. Ethan and Claire continued to watch the skies, knowing that the humans' presence would challenge everything the Coalition thought they knew. The quiet frontier was no longer safe, no longer predictable. A new power had arrived, and the galaxy would soon understand why humans were feared, respected, and never underestimated. The Coalition fleet had not moved for hours. Every ship remained on high alert, sensors scanning the blackness of space. The humans were no longer visible, having returned to positions near the planet's surface. Yet their presence lingered like a shadow, a quiet reminder that the galaxy's rules were about to change. Ethan Brooks could not sit still. He walked along the observation deck, staring at the monitors. "They're not leaving," he said to Claire Moore, who was reviewing the battle logs from the skirmish with the pirates. "They're still here watching." Claire nodded. "They have patience." Humans always wait, always observe, and they only act when necessary. We need to understand them before we make a mistake. Ethan frowned. "I've been trying to make sense of their actions. They don't attack without reason, but when they do, they are unstoppable." "The legends barely describe what they can do." Claire turned to him. "We've seen only a small part. Imagine what they can do on their own planet where everything is designed to challenge them. Storms, predators, starvation, they survive all of it. And that survival makes them more dangerous than anything we've faced." Ethan leaned against the console, thinking about the humans' abilities. Even in space, they adapted quickly. Their vessels were small but fast, able to maneuver with precision impossible for the Coalition fleet. They had disabled pirate ships without destroying them, taking control efficiently and without unnecessary violence. Every action seemed purposeful, every move calculated. "Why help the scouts?" Ethan asked. "Why risk themselves for creatures they barely know?" Claire shrugged. "Humans don't separate themselves from the rest of life the way we do. They fight for survival, yes, but they also fight for others if they can. It's instinctive. Loyalty is part of who they are." Ethan stared at the screen, watching empty space. "I wish we could understand them better, but we have no choice. We can only wait and observe just like them." Meanwhile, on the planet, humans were returning from their scouting missions. Their small teams landed near hidden bases in remote areas, camouflaged perfectly against the terrain. Captain Luke Carter, the leader of this expedition, debriefed his crew. "We observed the aliens," he said, speaking to his team of Deathworlders. "They are cautious and their fleet is slow to adapt. They underestimate us because they think we are myth. That is their mistake. We need to continue observing, continue gathering information. We act only if necessary, but we must be ready." One of the crew, a young woman named Amy Collins, spoke up. "Captain, they saw our rescue of the scouts. They might think we're allies already. Should we use that?" Luke shook his head. "Not yet. We do not form alliances lightly. Their trust is not ours to take. We observe, we survive, and we act only when required. Patience is our greatest weapon." Back in the Coalition fleet, Ethan and Claire received a message from the Senior Council. It was short, almost dismissive. "Prepare for potential engagement, but do not provoke." The Council refused to acknowledge the human threat fully, seeing it as a minor anomaly. Ethan sighed. He had been hoping for more authority to act. "They don't understand," he said quietly to Claire. "Humans are not a minor threat. They're something else entirely." "We've seen only a fraction of what they can do," Claire nodded. "We have to be careful. Any misstep could trigger a reaction we cannot control. Humans are intelligent, resourceful, and lethal when pushed." Days passed. Coalition ships maintained orbit, while humans moved unseen below. Strange events began to occur. Sensor readings showed small craft leaving the planet and returning in patterns that suggested training exercises. The humans were not just surviving, they were preparing. Ethan studied the logs closely. "Look at this," he said. "They are moving with precision, almost like coordinated military drills, and the speed no species we know can move like this." Claire looked over his shoulder. "Humans train for survival from birth. Everything they do is calculated for efficiency and endurance. Even their exercises mimic the challenges of their home planet. Storms, predators, scarcity, they prepare for all of it. This is why they are so effective." The Coalition officers began to realize the truth. Humans were not myth. They were not simply strong or fast. They had been forged in a world of constant danger, teaching them adaptability, endurance, and strategy in ways no other species experienced. One of the junior officers spoke up nervously. "Sir, if humans are as capable as you say, what happens if they decide we are a threat?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He watched the screen where small blips flickered near the planet's surface. "Then we will understand why the legends call them Deathworlders. They will survive anything, and they will not hesitate to strike if they must. But that is not what they want. Humans only act when necessary, and even then with purpose." As they observed, more details became clear. The humans had built hidden bases in extreme terrain, deep caves, thick forests, and high mountains. Their structures blended perfectly with the environment. From orbit, the Coalition could see almost nothing. Yet small activity suggested a thriving community, organized and disciplined. Ethan leaned closer. "Look at that. They are moving supplies, training in small squads. Everything is organized but discreet. They have no need to announce themselves. They survive without recognition." Claire nodded. "And that is what makes them unpredictable. We cannot know their full strength because they choose when and where to reveal it. We have to assume the worst until proven otherwise." The more Ethan learned, the more uneasy he felt. Humans were not just strong, they were patient, intelligent, and prepared for any situation. A confrontation with them would not be like any battle the Coalition had fought before. Humans thought differently. They adapted instantly, improvised, and found solutions no one else could imagine. Meanwhile, Captain Luke Carter held a council with his senior crew. "We have made initial contact indirectly. We understand their capabilities and tendencies. They are cautious and they are slow to adapt. Our advantage is patience and observation. We continue monitoring their fleet and their decisions. We act only when necessary, but we must remain ready for escalation. His crew listened carefully. Every human understood the dangers of the galaxy and the need for preparation. Their survival instincts were sharpened by the harsh environment of their home planet, and that instinct carried into space. Every action, every maneuver, every observation was part of a larger strategy: survive, learn, and protect. Back in the Coalition fleet, Ethan recorded his observations. He sent detailed reports to the Council, though he knew many officers would dismiss them. He noted human efficiency, patience, and adaptability. He recorded the strange combination of caution and readiness, intelligence and instinct. Most of all, he noted that humans did not fight for pride or conquest. They fought to survive and to protect. Claire joined him at the console. "You're right," she said. "These humans are different from anything we have faced. They survive because they adapt, and they adapt because they never stop learning. We cannot predict them fully, but we can respect them." Ethan nodded. "And that respect may be the only thing that keeps us alive if we make a mistake. Humans do not forgive easily, but they do protect those they consider worth protecting. We need to understand their values as much as their strength." As the days continued, the humans' presence in the system became more apparent. Small vessels patrolled near the planet, scouting areas the Coalition could not see. Supply runs were made with careful efficiency. Observation posts were maintained to watch both the planet and space above. Every action was calculated, deliberate, and silent. The Coalition officers began to realize something important. Humans were not invaders, not conquerors, but they were a force shaped by survival itself. Their patience, intelligence, and skill made them unpredictable. Any engagement with them could be devastating, yet their restraint suggested they were not seeking unnecessary conflict. Ethan and Claire discussed the implications quietly. "If the Council understood this," Ethan said, "they might act differently. Humans are not just a species, they are a test. They show us what survival truly means." Claire nodded. "And we are lucky to witness it before it's too late. We need to stay cautious, observant, and patient. Humans will reveal their true capabilities in their own time, not ours." Far below, the humans prepared for the next stage of their mission. Teams were briefed, equipment checked, and strategies refined. They were aware of the Coalition fleet watching from orbit, but they remained calm. Humans had survived far worse than observation and caution. Their skills, honed by a Deathworld, gave them confidence that nothing in this system could destroy them if they remained patient and smart. Ethan watched as small blips moved across the screen, invisible to most sensors. He whispered, "They're teaching us without words." Every movement, every decision, it's a lesson in survival and strategy. Claire smiled faintly. "Lessons that we ignore at our own peril. Humans are patient, intelligent, and dangerous, but also capable of protection. We should remember that." As night fell across the planet and the system settled into an uneasy calm, both humans and Coalition forces continued to watch and learn. Humans moved silently, adapting, preparing, and surviving. Coalition officers observed cautiously, realizing that legends only told part of the story. The humans were more than myths. They were Deathworlders, shaped by harsh survival, intelligent, adaptable, and ready for anything the galaxy might throw at them. Ethan leaned back in his chair. He felt awe, fear, and respect all at once. "We don't understand them fully," he said quietly, "but one thing is certain: the galaxy has never met a species like this, and when they finally reveal themselves, everything will change." Claire nodded. "And we will be ready to learn from them or face the consequences of underestimating them." The silent frontier had changed. Humans were here, hidden yet powerful, patient yet ready. The Coalition had seen only a glimpse, but that glimpse was enough to show that Deathworlders were unlike anything the galaxy had encountered. And the full truth of their strength, endurance, and intelligence would soon become impossible to ignore. The Coalition Council finally responded to the reports sent by Ethan Brooks and Claire Moore. The messages were short but firm. The humans were to be expelled from the system at all costs. Any contact with them should be avoided until the fleet was ready to act. The Council did not acknowledge the humans' strength or intelligence. They assumed that sheer numbers and firepower would be enough to force them away. Ethan read the orders quietly, a deep unease settling over him. "They have no idea what they're dealing with," he said to Claire. "If we follow this plan, it could be a disaster." Claire nodded, frowning. They don't understand humans. They think brute force will work, but humans survive in ways no one else can. We've seen it firsthand. The Council's arrogance could cost lives. Even as the Council prepared to mobilize, humans continued their careful observation. Captain Luke Carter and his crew moved in small groups, scouting the Coalition fleet without being detected. Their vessels were fast, agile, and designed for stealth. Every move was precise, every decision calculated. They were not aggressive, but they were ready for action if provoked. Ethan monitored the sensors as the humans moved. He noticed patterns that revealed not only their intelligence but their strategy. Humans rarely acted in isolation. Even small vessels coordinated movements with perfect timing, adjusting to conditions the Coalition could not predict. "Look at this," Ethan said, pointing to the screen. They're positioning themselves in ways that maximize observation and minimize exposure. It's not random, they're planning for every possible outcome. Claire leaned over his shoulder. They prepare for conflict, but they don't seek it. Humans are patient. They wait for the right moment, the moment they can control. That is what makes them dangerous. The Coalition fleet began to move. Large vessels advanced toward the system, weapons ready and shields up. Commanders assumed that humans would flee or surrender, but Ethan and Claire were not so sure. They had seen too much. Humans were not ordinary beings. They had survived storms, predators, and disasters that would have destroyed most species. In space, they were no less formidable. The first human vessels were detected near the planet's outer orbit. They remained hidden, using the planet's magnetic and atmospheric interference to evade detection. Coalition scanners could pick up small signals, but nothing significant enough to track effectively. The humans had learned to hide from the galaxy, and their skills were more than adequate. Ethan felt a chill as he watched. They know we're coming. They've anticipated this move, Claire nodded, and they're ready. Every move they make is controlled. If we strike recklessly, we will face consequences we cannot imagine. The Council's fleet continued its advance, confident in superior numbers and firepower. Some officers whispered about fear and caution, but most dismissed it as overreaction. Humans had always been myths, after all. They could not imagine that a species could survive and adapt to anything the way the humans did. As the fleet approached, human scouts observed the movement carefully. Captain Carter decided to maintain stealth while continuing to monitor. The humans had no intention of striking first, but they would not allow themselves or innocents to be harmed. Their vessels moved like shadows, fast and silent, ready to act at the first sign of danger. Ethan and Claire watched in tense silence as the first real contact occurred. A Coalition cruiser approached one of the human scouting vessels, its weapons primed. The humans did not flee. They remained calm, their crew ready, eyes sharp. "They're not running," Ethan whispered. "They're waiting." The cruiser fired a warning shot. The humans reacted instantly. Small vessels darted between laser blasts, moving at speeds that defied prediction. They returned fire not to destroy, but to disable, carefully targeting engines and weapons to prevent unnecessary destruction. The Coalition crew was stunned. No species they knew could react this fast and accurately under such conditions. Claire's voice was quiet but firm. "They are protecting themselves and minimizing damage. Every move is precise. They fight to survive, not to kill for pride or conquest." The skirmish escalated as more Coalition vessels joined in, assuming the humans would break. Instead, the humans adapted to every attack, responding in ways that seemed impossible. Small vessels appeared in unexpected positions, coordinating attacks to disable weapons and shields rather than destroy entire ships. Every action had a purpose. Ethan could hardly believe what he saw. They're planning as they fight. They're learning from every strike we make and adjusting instantly. It's incredible, Claire nodded. This is what survival teaches them. Every encounter, every disaster, every threat, they've trained for it all their lives. We cannot predict their actions, only respect them. The battle reached a turning point when Coalition ships attempted to encircle the human forces. The humans anticipated this and used clever maneuvers to escape, leading some ships into positions where Coalition weapons risked hitting their own allies. The humans did not strike recklessly. They created opportunities to neutralize threats while minimizing collateral damage. Ethan studied the movement patterns. They're teaching us strategy without saying a word. Every maneuver, every retreat, every counterattack, it's calculated. We're seeing what humans are capable of firsthand. Claire's eyes were wide. And the Council doesn't even realize the danger they face. They think superior numbers and firepower are enough. Humans are more than numbers. They are survival incarnate. The Coalition fleet, frustrated and confused, tried to maintain control. Officers shouted orders, attempting to coordinate attacks against the unpredictable humans. Yet each action the Council took was met with countermeasures so precise that Coalition ships struggled to adjust. Humans were patient and observant, and their patience gave them the upper hand. After hours of skirmishing, the humans withdrew temporarily, returning to hidden positions near the planet's surface. Coalition ships were left scattered, damaged, and frustrated. No decisive victory had been achieved. For the first time, the Council realized that these humans were not myth. They were a force that could not be easily subdued. Ethan and Claire reviewed the damage reports. "This is only a glimpse," Ethan said quietly. "They've held their ground against overwhelming odds and retreated without losing a single vessel. We've underestimated them." Claire's voice was calm but serious. "And we've seen why the legends exist. Humans survive, adapt, and protect. Every decision, every move has purpose. They are more than strong or fast. They are intelligent and relentless." The Council demanded new plans. Some wanted to continue the attack, believing humans would eventually break. Others argued for retreat, fearing the unpredictable nature of the Deathworlders. Tension ran high across the fleet, and internal disagreements threatened cohesion. Ethan realized the humans had achieved something even without fighting directly, had forced the Coalition to question its own strategies and assumptions. Humans were not just a threat, they were a lesson in adaptation, patience, and survival. Meanwhile, Captain Luke Carter gathered his crew. "We have tested them," he said. "We have shown restraint and skill. They know we are not to be underestimated. Our next steps will be carefully measured. We do not seek war, but we are ready to defend ourselves and others if necessary." His crew nodded, understanding that survival was always their priority. Humans had survived far worse challenges than this system, and their training and experience gave them confidence that nothing the Coalition could do would catch them unprepared. Ethan continued to monitor the humans' movements. Small craft continued to patrol near the planet, and hidden bases remained undetectable from orbit. Humans were everywhere and nowhere, moving with stealth and precision. The Coalition could not predict their actions, only observe and react. Claire spoke quietly. "They are not just defending themselves. They are shaping the battlefield, teaching us the meaning of patience, caution, and intelligence. This is why they survive where others fail." Ethan nodded. "We cannot attack recklessly. If the Council forces another engagement, it will be their mistake. Humans are ready, and they adapt faster than anyone expects." As night fell across the system, both sides paused to regroup. Humans returned to safe positions, hidden and alert, while the Coalition fleet repaired minor damage and reassessed strategies. Tension remained high, but one truth was clear. Humans were not just survivors, they were a force that could not be defeated by numbers alone. Ethan and Claire sat quietly on the observation deck. "The galaxy has never seen a species like this," Ethan said, "and we are witnessing only a fraction of their capabilities. Humans survive because they adapt, and they adapt because they have endured everything life can throw at them." Claire nodded. "And the Council does not understand this yet. Humans are not a threat in the usual sense, they are a challenge. And only by respecting them can we survive what comes next." Far below, humans continued their careful preparation. Every vessel, every scout, every base was ready. Patience, observation, and adaptability defined their strategy. They did not seek war, but they were ready to defend themselves and others. The Coalition had learned a hard lesson. Humans were not myths, legends, or tales to frighten children. They were Deathworlders, forged by survival, intelligent, relentless, and impossible to underestimate. Ethan and Claire knew the next engagement could happen at any moment. Humans had proven themselves capable of controlling the battlefield, and the Coalition would soon have to confront a reality they had long refused to accept. The quiet frontier was no longer quiet. Humans had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Coalition fleet had regrouped after the failed skirmishes. Officers were tense, weapons systems fully operational, and strategies revised, but the uncertainty remained. Humans had proven their strength, intelligence, and adaptability. No one in the fleet underestimated them anymore, yet fear and awe coexisted in equal measure. Ethan Brooks sat at the observation console, staring at the blips on the screen. "They're not attacking," he said quietly to Claire Moore. "They haven't made a move in hours. It's like they're waiting for something." Claire nodded. "They're patient. They wait for the right moment, and when they act, it's calculated. We've learned that already. Humans don't waste energy or risk without purpose. We need to remember that if the Council forces another engagement." The Council, however, was impatient. Orders came again to force the humans out of the system. This time, a larger fleet, better armed and more coordinated, prepared to enter the system fully. They believed sheer numbers would finally make humans retreat or surrender, but Ethan and Claire knew better. "They will not give up easily," Ethan said. "And if we push them, it won't just be a small battle. It could be catastrophic for both sides." Claire watched the sensors. "And yet they have shown restraint. Even when attacked, they minimized casualties, disabled rather than destroyed, protected others. Humans fight to survive and to protect, not to conquer. That is something the Council doesn't understand." Far below, humans prepared quietly. Captain Luke Carter and his crew observed the fleet's movements. Every ship, every vessel, and every base was ready. Humans had anticipated escalation and were prepared for all possibilities. Their patience, endurance, and intelligence gave them confidence. They were calm but alert, knowing that survival required both action and caution. "They are moving again," Luke said, pointing at the small scout vessels. "We maintain observation, but we remain hidden. Any engagement will be precise and controlled. We do not strike first unless necessary." The coalition advanced, expecting a display of fear or retreat. Instead, they were met with coordinated human maneuvers designed to demonstrate strength while minimizing conflict. Small human vessels appeared in unexpected positions, disabling weapons and engines of approaching ships without causing deaths. The coalition officers were amazed. No species they knew could respond with such speed, intelligence, and restraint. Ethan and Claire watched, taking notes for the Council. "They're teaching us strategy again," Ethan said. "Without words, without threat, just action." "Humans survive by understanding, adapting, and controlling the battlefield," Claire added. "And that control is not about domination. It is about protection and preparation. They show restraint because they value life, not because they are weak. That is the difference." The Council's fleet hesitated. Some commanders argued to continue the attack, insisting that humans could be overwhelmed eventually. Others warned that recklessness would be fatal. Tension spread across the fleet, a reflection of the humans' silent influence. Without firing a single shot, the Deathworlders had forced caution and respect. Ethan reviewed the sensors. They could destroy this fleet in hours if they wanted, yet they choose not to. They fight only when necessary, and even then with purpose. Claire nodded. "That is why humans are more than myth. They are a force shaped by survival, intelligence, and morality. We must respect them or pay the price." The Council reluctantly agreed to a ceasefire to avoid unnecessary losses. Negotiations began, mediated by Ethan and Claire, who understood the humans better than most. Human representatives, led by Captain Luke Carter, engaged carefully, observing the Council's reactions and responding with clarity, intelligence, and patience. "We do not seek war," Luke said calmly. "We came to observe and survive. If coexistence is possible, we will act to protect others and ourselves, but aggression will be met with calculated defense." The coalition listened, realizing the humans' words reflected their actions. Restraint, patience, intelligence, and protection, these were not myths or stories. Humans lived by them. Their words were matched by deeds, and that alignment inspired respect even among the most skeptical officers. Ethan took notes furiously. "They are honest, precise, and consistent. Humans act as they speak, and they survive because of it. They teach lessons we cannot ignore." Claire added, "And those lessons are clear. Humans value life, they respect allies, they adapt faster than anyone expects, and they endure anything. The galaxy will have to accept that now." As negotiations progressed, humans demonstrated their capabilities in subtle ways. Small exercises showed fleet coordination, logistics, and strategic planning. Coalition officers saw humans anticipate potential threats, neutralize hazards, and protect assets efficiently. All this without unnecessary force. Every action reinforced the message. Humans were formidable, yet not reckless. Ethan watched a human scout disable a coalition weapons platform with precision targeting and minimal damage. "They're showing strength and control," he whispered. "They could destroy if they wanted. Instead, they teach and protect. This is remarkable," Claire nodded. "This is why the Council underestimated them for so long. Humans are not predictable. They survive because they think, adapt, and act for purpose, not for pride, revenge, or conquest." Finally, after days of observation and negotiation, the Coalition acknowledged the humans' place in the system. A formal agreement was drafted, allowing humans to remain and observe, with restrictions on offensive actions but freedom to maintain bases and patrols. It was unprecedented. Humans had earned recognition not through fear or aggression, but through restraint, intelligence, and demonstration of skill. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. They've earned their place, not by threat but by action. Humans show the galaxy a new standard of survival, loyalty, and honor. Claire smiled faintly. And the Council finally understands. Humans are not myths, they are Deathworlders, shaped by survival, cleverness, and endurance. They survive, they protect, and they inspire respect. Captain Luke Carter addressed his crew. "Our mission here is complete. We have shown our abilities, protected ourselves and others, and earned a place among the stars. Remember, our survival comes from patience, observation, and action only when necessary. This is how we thrive, and how humanity will continue to shape the galaxy." The crew nodded, understanding the significance. Humans had arrived in a system where no one expected them, and they had achieved more than confrontation. They had earned respect, trust, and a reputation that would echo across the galaxy. Ethan and Claire continued to monitor, realizing that the humans' impact went beyond the immediate system. They had set a new standard. Their resilience, intelligence, and morality challenged old assumptions and myths. They were survivors, teachers, and protectors, Deathworlders whose presence would influence strategy, diplomacy, and respect for generations. As night fell across the system, human vessels returned to hidden positions, silent but alert. They had acted with purpose, and the galaxy had taken notice. Coalition officers spoke quietly, acknowledging that humans were not just strong or fast. They were adaptable, intelligent, patient, and protective. A new understanding had been established. Humans were a species to respect, never underestimate, and learn from. Ethan sat quietly on the observation deck. "We've learned from them," he said to Claire. "Without words, without pride, without aggression. Humans survive because they think, adapt, and protect. The galaxy will never be the same again." Claire looked at the stars. "And that is why they are called Deathworlders. They have faced the harshest challenges and survived. Now they have arrived among the stars. They fight with purpose, endure with patience, and inspire respect without demanding it. Humans are extraordinary." The quiet frontier had changed forever. Humans had arrived, faced the galaxy, and emerged not as conquerors, but as protectors, survivors, and teachers. Their presence earned respect through deeds, and every action demonstrated their endurance, intelligence, and restraint. The Council, the Coalition, and the galaxy would remember this day, the day humanity proved why no species could underestimate Deathworlders. Ethan leaned back, watching the humans move unseen yet everywhere. "They survived everything their world threw at them," he whispered. "And now they are teaching the galaxy what survival truly means. Humans are patient, intelligent, and unstoppable in ways no one can predict." Claire nodded. "And we are lucky to witness it. The galaxy will never forget them, and neither should we." The stars stretched endlessly above, calm yet alive with possibility. The humans, hidden but prepared, had arrived. They had faced fear, hostility, and doubt, and emerged respected. The quiet frontier was no longer quiet, and humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through fear, not through domination, but through endurance, intelligence, and the courage to act with purpose. The galaxy had finally met humanity's Deathworlders, and everything would change.